I love watching clients transform before my eyes and ears, from someone who's simply an expert into an inspiring leader. I met someone who kept getting passed over for an executive role, so we started working together and we figured out what it was about her communication style that kept the right people from seeing her as executive material. Within 6 months, she got that promotion. Sure, you're an expert in your fields, you're the brains behind the operation, but now you need to be the face and the voice in front of it. It's all about developing 3 things: confidence, presence, and influence. Whether you're going to be speaking on stage, on camera, in the boardroom, or just on the phone, you need to feel confident inside and have that presence that allows others to see and believe that confidence and get on board. That's when you have more influence and get bigger and better results. The most common fear is speaking in public. But I have a 4-word secret to confident public speaking, and when I tell people, it instantly changes their perspective and boosts their confidence. I shared it with somebody last week, and he looked at me and he said, "I can totally do that." It is that easy. But it goes beyond public speaking or even executive presence. One client said to me, "This is about so much more than communication. It's really about strategy. I'm a better leader because of you." Now, let me be clear about something. I'm a linguist, not an actor. I couldn't teach you to act if I wanted to. The only thing I can do is teach you to speak so that the most authentic version of you shines through in a way that's persuasive, compelling, and gets results. The goal is to master the 3 C's: command the room, connect with the audience, and close the deal. Find your voice and find your power. That's speaking to influence. Do I love what I do? Absolutely.
And with that, we welcome Dr. Laura Sicola. Hey, how are you? I love that video so much, so many nuggets, and we're going to get a chance to dig a little deeper into all of those. How are you?
I am so excited to be here. Thank you so much for inviting me today, Ron.
I'm glad to have you as a guest. I've been following your work for some time, and this is why I said, you know what, let's get together and kind of talk this over so that everyone else can see what I've seen over a period of time. So walk us through your career. You know, you're giving out all these nuggets. How did Dr. Laura become Dr. Laura?
I ask myself that sometimes too.
Yeah.
I am a teacher from way back, right in the beginning. I taught public school for a number of years, both in the United States and in overseas. I was in Japan for a few years. And then I came to Philadelphia originally to do my doctorate, to do my PhD, with the intention of training teachers. So I got my degree. It's in linguistics and education. So really my research is all about looking at how we learn and how we speak. And what is it about the way that we speak that makes our message either go in one ear and come out the other for the listener and make no impact whatsoever, or go in and stick and hopefully do something useful while it's in there. And there are so many factors involved in our messaging, in the relationship with the other person, that change, and little tiny changes make such a massive difference. And there were a couple of moments in time where I met people, and I know you want to talk about those kind of special moments later, but that helped me see perhaps, and I knew at the time, after I finished my degree and I was teaching at the university, that I love the teaching part of being a professor. But the tenure track was really not a good culture fit for me. I think so. And this is my very, very biased opinion here. So Ron, you can tell me if this resonates with you at all, but I think there are 2 kinds of professors, and they're both great, but there are the people who are teachers at heart, who also publish research, and there are researchers at heart who also teach classes. And the big universities want the researchers, and they should also teach some classes, but they kind of don't care how good they are at that part of it. And that's not me. I'm the other one. I love to teach. I love to coach. I love to train. I love to be on stage and speaking. And I do research, but it doesn't excite me. It doesn't, get me out of bed every day. And so it just was not a good fit. And
Yeah.
there was an opportunity, of all funny experiences. I was at my cousin's wedding and we were at the reception of the wedding. And I'm just talking to someone who is sitting at the table next to me. And he asked about my work and I gave him a little bit of background. And he said to me, I've always had an interest and an instinct in what you do, but I never had the data to back it up. You have the data. And I think
Okay.
it's really relevant. Would you want to come and do a training for my team? And it turns out he was the vice president of government programs at IBM. So
Oof.
poof, just like that, I had a consulting opportunity for a Fortune 100 company. And about 20 minutes later, maybe not exactly 20 minutes, but a couple of months, very short time later, something equally accidental but wonderful happened where someone from Chase, the bank, called the university trying to find a particular office. They got the wrong office. They got my number.
Wow.
And when I was talking to it was someone from HR and training and development, and he was explaining what he was looking for. And I said, well, first, the office you're supposed to talk to is this one over here. Let me give you their number. I wish you well. If you don't hear the answer you want, because you're calling the University of Pennsylvania, a massive institution, and you want them to custom design something and bring it to you. They don't do that easily or cheaply or flexibly or without 50 lawyers and accountants all debating and for 2 years.
Yeah.
If you want someone to create that program that you've described and bring it to you quickly, effectively, and at the same caliber, call me back and we'll talk privately offline because I graduated from here. So I have the caliber, I have the background, and clearly they think they did a good enough job because they hired me back to continue to teach. So you get the pen quality without all the hassle. And they called me back and suddenly I had a 6-month contract with Chase. So those were the 2 moments where I thought, okay, this is the universe. It was not an accident. It's the universe confirming, saying, perhaps this is the direction you should go. And that was 17 years ago. And here we are today.
Years ago. So what I thought about if you told that story is that a lot of other professors, a lot of other people may have received the same calls and they said, I don't feel comfortable. I'm comfortable in the higher education, not in the for-profit kind of approach. Is that a confidence thing that you would say? Do you use that in your methods now to get people to build up their confidence level? It's like, let me explore it. I'll figure it out.
I think that's a really important skill in entrepreneurship and in leadership. And personally, I get bored really fast. I don't know about you, Ron, but so I don't know that I've ever taken a job opportunity that I was, well, I mean, it's not that I haven't taken a client, but big picture, like job changes. I've never taken a new job that I felt I was 100% ready. And it's not about ready that I had 100% of the skills and experience ready for. I had enough and I was going to figure the rest out. Because if I had them all, I wasn't going to learn anything. It was, do I have enough to do what I need to do and figure out the rest as I go? I will learn in the process. Yep. And I think that's a key for entrepreneurs and it's a key for leaders because life is going to always throw things at you that you have never experienced before. And you better be ready to figure it out.
That's so powerful because yesterday I received a request from a CEO kind of a person to do kind of a offsite kind of an approach. And I'd never really done that. But my approach is I'll wait, sleep on it, and get up the next day and rethink it through.
Sure.
And for some reason I come through, okay, step 1, 2, 3, here's how we can tie it, I can tie it in here. And I can pretty much put it together, but I have to breathe.
Yep.
And when I breathe, I can come back the next day and put something together for the initial conversation. So how do you coach executives or how do you coach other consultants or people or even someone in school that the opportunity may come and you may not feel that you can reach it, but that's my approach. How would you coach that?
For someone who doesn't think that they have this, they're afraid to make that leap.
Yeah.
So let me be clear on something. In both of those situations, with the first one at the wedding reception, it
Yeah.
was the invitation came, and it wasn't like I had to sign the contract in the moment. It was,
Yes.
an invitation to explore an opportunity. Would
Okay.
you be interested in doing something like this? Yes,
Explore.
I'm interested.
Yeah.
Sure. And there were several emails and phone calls and whatnot that we had to really discuss what it might look like. I still had full autonomy to create the experience for
Mhm.
everybody, but I needed to know, where is it? What's the context? Who are the people? How much time are we looking for? What are the objectives? And we had to work out a lot of stuff together and then decide, are we going to move forward on this or not? And the day that we finally decided, we fixed a price, we did whatever else, I hung up the phone and I looked at myself in the mirror and I said, "Oh my God." And I used actually slightly sharper
I know.
language than that.
Adult,
It was like,
adult language.
what
Adult.
did I just agree to do? I I just agreed to talk to 75 global leaders from IBM on an executive retreat to show what did I just do? And like that's when the adrenaline and the panic utterly kicked in. And then it was like, all right, Laura, well, guess what? Now it's time to put up or shut up because you
Yeah.
just committed to this. Now
Yeah.
step up and do it.
Yeah.
Stop whining, stop worrying, just execute. And I had to do my research and bring in partners and bring in, other people that I needed to help with certain roles, but you
Mhm.
did it. And the same thing, with the bank on the phone, with the second opportunity, the difference there was that there was a moment. And this is something where you can't sleep on it, right? Because the guy called me, he wasn't supposed to call me, he got the wrong number. And I did
Wow.
my job and I told him where he should have gone. And I even shared with him, you know what, if you're looking for this, here's the person you should talk to. Here's how you ask the question. Here's how you frame what you're looking for. Here's the answers that you'll probably get. So you should expect this. So be ready with it. But once we hung up, I would not hear from him again. The
Okay.
opportunity would evaporate for
Mhm.
me. So I had to make a snap decision and take the chance or not. Put up or shut up. There's no regrets on
Yeah.
this. So I took the chance and said, by the way, if you don't get the answers you want, call me back. Here's my number direct.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
and now he hung up and I had no idea what might happen. But there's always that little wonder, that little panic. And then of course it came again, which was a wonderful opportunity. But in that moment, you can't hesitate. You have to be willing to initiate. And that's leadership, right? If you can't lead yourself, if you're holding back, that's the opposite of leading forward. So
Yeah.
you lead yourself first. And
Yeah.
courage is not fearlessness. Courage is feeling the fear and doing it anyway.
Yeah. That's such an amazing story. But you know what I pull away from that is that where did that come from? I mean, you're an academic. I'm going to put you an academic, and then you're kind of dipping your toes into entrepreneurship.
Mhm.
Where did that come from? The confidence level to say, you know what, I'm going to do one, two, three. You talk about the threes. We're going to get to the threes. Was that something in upbringing or something that was there? Or how did you?
I mean, I had great parents. I could not be luckier with the family that I grew up in. They were both extremely supportive, whatever I wanted to do. Um, but I think, it's a couple of things. One, the opportunities as they were presented to me. The first one, would you want to come and do a training for my team? Well, training is teaching. It's just a different label. I'm a born teacher.
Okay.
That's my thing. So there was no question in my mind that I could lead a training for a team. And he wanted it to be about my research. So it was material that I was very confident in. Now, how to take that and shift it and make it in the application to a global leadership team,
Yeah.
that was totally new and utterly terrifying. Let's be honest,
Yeah.
for me the first time. But I knew I had the building blocks and I
Okay.
wanted to challenge myself, and it was money and I needed the money at the time.
Yeah.
So, there was the opportunity. And, it's also at that pivot point where I realized I was not happy pursuing the tenure track. The
Mm.
idea of doing academic research for the rest of my life as a career was utterly uninspiring.
Yeah.
And I didn't for a number of reasons.
Mhm.
So, um, I was looking for other opportunities. I just didn't know what else they would be. And that's one of the challenges of getting a PhD is it trains you for a life of research in academia. There's not much, there's not a lot of job. You can't look in the classified ads or on monster.com or Ladders or whatever it is, LinkedIn, and say, okay, what's a job label that I'm qualified for? At least not in my space. Wanted cognitive linguist like who posts that? Nobody. So what am I supposed to do? You have to be a little creative and say, what can I do? Transferable skills. That is the key. What are your transferable skills that you can take anywhere? And my older son is now finishing college, but a few years ago when he was applying to universities and trying to decide, what should I major in? What should I study? What kind of career do I want? I said, you can study whatever you want, but it's about the transferable skills. So you do need basic finance. You do need computer literacy, obviously. You do need communications, oral and written. Be a good communicator. Take a public speaking class. So a few basic skills you have to have, because no matter what direction your career goes, you're going to need all of them if you want to rise in that career. And so that's, fortunately, he took most of my advice.
So you've transitioned that into a lot of different areas. So you talk about public speaking, which was in the video, and the confidence, pressure, the 3 Ps. That all of that came out of from the academic part to going out into the so-called real world. And when you mentioned IBM, I worked for IBM twice, so that's a totally different audience. That's top of the food chain when you go there. And to go there as that kind of, I'm going to say probably my first assignment, kind of getting into that space.
Me too.
The level of confidence that you had to build to make that leap came from someplace. So walk us through the 3 Ps of presence.
So the 3 Cs. The
3 Cs.
So the 3 Cs are the ability to command the room, connect with the audience, and close the deal. Let me explain what those are. Number 1, command the room. From the minute you walk in, from the minute if you're sitting down or standing up, when you start to speak, do you captivate people's attention? Does your presence, the way you hold yourself, the way you use your voice, does it compel people to look at you and focus? There's a difference between commanding respect and demanding respect.
Whoa.
If you have to demand respect, you will respect me. They never will. They will comply. They will not respect you internally. That is a different space. When people respect you as a leader, they will walk through fire for you. That's a different place to be. So to command attention is not to demand, pay attention to me. Demanding presence. It's just, you don't have to ask for it. Right? So that's the command. Number 2, connect with the audience, no matter who they are. And you have a very international audience here. Yes. Very diverse audience as far as their roles and their positions in life and their geography, academics and students and professionals. So our job, yours and mine alike, is to tell stories, ask questions, provide information that on some level, no matter where they are in the world, they feel like we understand them and they understand us. All of them, every individual out there. So you out there who's listening, I'm talking to you personally, you one-on-one, you and me. And I want you to feel like you took something where she went, oh, she saw right through me. I heard a great expression the other day. I was at an event host, and one of the speakers was Sally Lou Lovejoy, who was one of Oprah Winfrey's executive producers. And she said that the best speakers she said a good speaker tells you their story. A great speaker tells you your story. So through your ability to tell a story, others should feel like, oh, that's me, or wow, that's good for me, or something, right? But there's that connection. So even on that one point, we could be from different universes, but somehow we form that bond. So that's the second C, connect with the audience. And the third C is close the deal. Now, let's be clear. This does not mean sales. It can if you happen to be in a sales role or business development role, fine. But broadly speaking, closing the deal means getting to yes. It means coming to an agreement step by step, maybe just one little tiny piece of progress, but you're
Yeah.
moving the needle forward little by little. How are you closing that deal? Maybe the deal is simply a matter of, you know what, discussions have been a little tense. Let's take a break. Let's go get lunch. And then
Mm.
we'll come back in an hour when everyone is refreshed, relaxed,
Okay.
full bellies, and start again. If we've
Mm.
come to that agreement, we've closed that deal. And now we take a
Mm.
step forward.
Mm. As you were the video and you were walking through that concept, and now you explained a little deeper, I thought about an article I wrote a couple of weeks ago, From the Barbershop to the Boardroom.
Mm,
First started as a kid, I was working in a barbershop and I'd watch characters in there.
I'll
And I
bet.
knew some people were influential. I could also spot people who were not influential, just a lot of this. And then when I got out and started speaking, when I got out of school and I had to speak in front of a group, I was very, very nervous.
Mm.
And the entire article was, you captured all of that in those three concepts, because I had to build it to a level that I felt that I can command the room, not by slides, but one of the key points you talked to is storytelling. You tell the story and connect with people and say, oh my God, that was me years ago. Oh my God. And that's how it all started for me. So thank you for verifying that
Yes.
for me.
Oh, I'm so glad. Yes, it's absolutely universal wisdom.
Yes, it is. It is. So going through all of that, you kind of made a transition more into the corporate side, I'm going to say, but you have the luggage, which shows that you are credible in doing what you're doing. What challenges have you faced in kind of making that transformation, if any?
Yeah, oh, of course. Look, there's no path of life that doesn't come with challenges. Anybody who makes it look easy is only showing you what's on the surface. That's the Facebook lifestyle, right? Facebook, everybody posts whatever makes them look at me, look how happy I am, look how wonderful my life is, and they're a hot mess in the back, just like everybody else. Don't let them fool you. The biggest shift, the biggest challenge for me is that after those two first contracts came through with IBM and with Chase, Fortune 100 companies stopped just raining out of the sky and landing in my lap.
Wow.
And because they don't do that often
Yeah.
or ever, that was a really, I think it was a God-given
Yeah,
yellow
me.
arrow pointing me in a new direction. But I had no business background. I had no business training. I had no
Okay.
business experience. That was not my space. So, okay, now how do I find my next client? What do I do? What do I call what I do? How do I market it? Who do I talk to? How do I find those people? I had no idea how to start a business. I didn't even know how to put up a website at that time. 17 years ago, things have changed a lot since then. And so it started, I'm trying to think how it even began, but I went to a lot of networking meetings, and a lot of some like local government, small business development workshops I'd find out about, and I'd attend a seminar here, and it was before webinars were ever a thing. So but it was a lot of attending events and taking a little course here, a little class there, trying to learn. I didn't know where to start. So honestly, Ron, I would say the first 5 years was a very slow
Yeah.
learning curve, because it was just trying to figure, and what I learned in part was that the labels that I was using to describe what I do were all out of academia. And that's
Mhm.
not what the business world called it. And it's not what the business world was willing to pay for.
Mhm.
And it took about 5 years before, you know what it was, in 2013, I saw a TED Talk by Sheryl Sandberg, ironically the COO of Facebook. So
Well, yeah.
bringing Facebook back into this, but
Founding. Yeah.
yes. And she, in her TED Talk, she was describing all of how so many women don't feel like their voices are heard. And, I'm a linguist, I'm an extrovert, I'm a confident public speaker, I lead classes, I lead training. So having my voice heard, I never felt was an issue. I've never been intimidated by men or women. That's not an issue for me. So I was really surprised to hear what she was describing. 2013, we're not talking in 1975.
Yes,
Uh,
yes.
and so I started attending some women's networking events, and asking, kind of polling the audience, saying, "Did you see her TED Talk?" And it was her book Lean In that she had just published,
Very famous
and
book.
which I read, and I was again surprised at all the statistics that were out there about the discrepancy in women and men's equality of pay and opportunity in the workplace, et cetera. So I started asking women because I was like, "Can that be true?" So I started asking, did you read her book? What did you think? Have you had similar experiences? And they all said, oh my gosh, yes. Let me
Yes.
tell you my life experience. And so it was clear I had been living under a rock.
Yeah.
I was not aware of what so many professional women were experiencing. And they'd all tell me stories about where their voices were not heard. And I thought, well, I'm a
Mm.
linguist.
Mm.
Voice is a deep part of my training. So maybe part of it, yes, of course, there are external factors, racism, sexism, all that kind of stuff. But there's also internal factors like what are you doing with the way that you're using your voice, with the way that you're communicating that perhaps is also getting in your own way. Not to blame the victim, but we all have stuff we do that gets in
Yeah.
our own way. True. So,
Exactly.
so my thought was, let me do a training on vocal empowerment for women in leadership.
Ooh.
And I rebranded my company and I launched a public event at the Chamber of Commerce in Philadelphia. And there were almost 100 women who I have no idea who any of them are, how they found out about it. But I posted it on the website, and about 100 women from all different for-profit, nonprofit, everything imaginable came to this event. And it just showed me that there was this need, and it was leadership, and it was
Mm.
communication in leadership. That was what the connective language was. And when I started promoting my work as leadership communication training, then
Okay.
the doors opened up. But it took me 5 years to figure that out because I had no one to tell me.
Yeah. Yeah. So it was all kind of self-taught discovery, and it all came into place. Was that the impetus for the book?
The book that came out, yes, eventually. That was the first. So I've written several books previously, but they were all academic. So
Yeah.
not anything that anybody would want to read for like super exciting page turners. But I always say those would be a great cure for insomnia. If you're looking
Yeah.
for a non-chemical solution to insomnia, go read one of my academic papers. Um, but the book, honestly, I wrote because I wanted to be on more stages. I wanted to do more keynote speaking at conferences, but you can't get onto a big stage at a big conference without a book. That's
Yeah.
the equivalent of a speaker's business
Yeah,
card.
yeah, it is. It is. It
Because
is.
when you're done speaking, people, if they really love what you say, they want to go to the expo floor and they want to go up and they want to buy your book. And the
Mhm.
the conference wants to be able to sell your stuff.
Yeah.
So that was my motivation then to start writing it.
Mm. Have you used mentors along the way? Because it sounds like you were trying to figure it out, and sometimes you need a sounding board or someone to talk to. Who do you
Yes.
talk? Who do you talk to when Dr. Lord needs someone to talk to? Walk us through that experience, not specifically the person, but how does mentors play a role?
Mentors and coaches both, I think, are
Yeah.
really important, and they're overlapping in their value, but they are different. I've had a few mentors, all informal, along the way. I have never had a conversation with somebody and say, "Would you be my mentor?"
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
doesn't
The
that
formal word. Yeah.
doesn't work, right? But
Yeah.
actually, the person that I met from IBM at that wedding reception, he has become a lifelong friend and confidant and business advisor from time to time. And we've done a number of other programs since then. He started a nonprofit and started his own company, left IBM a few years later, and we've done a number of projects together. We went to Cairo together a few times. We've done work in New York together. So he's been fabulous, and we've each reached out to each other at various times. So when I need real business insight, like, here's my idea. Does this seem
Yeah.
like something that would sell? Am I framing it right? Am I pricing it right? He's a great person to go to.
That's
Um,
awesome.
but then there are others along the way. I met early on when I was starting to do the women's, and I do men and women, of course, as far as clients are concerned. But in the beginning, it was the women's challenge that is what made my work pivot.
Mhm.
And someone saw me speak and said, uh, there's a lot of people who talk about executive presence and leadership communication and things, but she said, no one does the voice. And of course, I do a lot more than voice, but no one does the voice component and no one does this and this and this. That's what you do. And she said, your work is a game changer.
Mm.
And when somebody who's pretty high up and pretty powerful and well connected says your work is a game changer, that that was super validating and super inspiring for me. But the validation was more than just from an ego perspective. It was like, okay, thank you. So because I feel like so much of that lead up time was me just guessing and trying to find my way. And
Yeah.
try and try and try. You have to have resilience as an entrepreneur. You have to be ready to handle not just no, 1,000 no's and keep going. And you can't give up. Your ego can't be like, oh, they said no again. I give up. Okay, give up and go get a job. And there's nothing wrong with that. Jobs are great. Entrepreneurs need people to work for them and have jobs. We create jobs, but you have to have the stomach and the
Mm.
fortitude for entrepreneurship and for leadership anywhere. But
Yeah.
resilience and not letting no defeat you is a
Oh,
prerequisite.
yeah. You talk about not letting no defeat you, and when people look, you referenced something before. Talk about this Facebook presence. People think, oh my God, it's all this, all there. They don't realize the journey that people have gone through, the no's, the thousands of no's, and they get back up and try it again, and you keep getting back up. Fortitude to say, I'm going to keep trying it till it hits.
Yes.
Can you build that in a person? Can you build that into, if you were doing a conference, and you were a keynote, and these were all aspiring entrepreneurs struggling, their face is there, but they're struggling, and mentally they're struggling. What would be some pieces of advice that you would give them?
Seek feedback.
Mm.
Ask everybody. And you cannot be afraid to share with people what your challenge is.
Yeah.
Is it about pricing? Is it about the offering? Is it about the audience that you're trying to get through to? Talk to people who are in that space and ask them for their feedback and show them your website, show them your proposal, show them whatever it is and say, tell me what are the top 5 things that you would change or the questions you have. Invite them to shred
Yeah.
whatever you've created. Have them
Mm.
rip it apart and be excited about it. If you are walking in there going, oh, I hope they like it, you're going in with the wrong attitude. Walk
Yeah.
into these advisory conversations and say, I hope I leave with at least 5 things that make me go, oh my gosh, I can't
Yeah.
believe I had this and this and this, or I didn't know this. And you need to walk out going, I have to shred and rebuild everything.
Mm.
If
Mm.
you do that with that clarity, if you walk in hoping that you walk out with a handful of rubble, a handful of pebbles because they just destroyed what you had, that's a good thing. Now, they're not telling you to like go home, bake a cake, and just cry yourself to sleep. That's not
Yeah.
what they're saying, but they're saying to be successful, it's not this, it's this. It's not these, it's those.
Mm.
Okay, thank you. So that I'm not wasting my time trying to chase something that doesn't exist, because one of the biggest pitfalls of the entrepreneur is falling in love with their product instead of falling in love with their client.
Mm.
They create something that they think, oh, this is such a good idea. I want to build this app. I want to build this product. I want to offer this service. It would add so much value. And people may say, oh, that sounds like a great idea, but will they pay for it
Will they pay for it? Will they pay for
as
the
you have
Yes.
created?
Yes.
And maybe they won't. And that's really hard because sometimes you put a lot of time into building something and you can't get people to pay for it. They will not part with their money in
Mm.
exchange for your product or service. And that is beyond frustrating. But if you keep defending, no, but I'm right, you should want this. That is the kiss of death. When you hear yourself saying that the people should want what you've created, go home, throw it away, start over. and
Yeah.
but ask questions first. If they don't want this, what do they want? Now, of course, be careful about that because Henry Ford, the creator of Ford Motors,
Yeah.
100 years ago, of course, is known for having said, if I asked people what they wanted, they would have told me they wanted a faster horse.
Yeah.
They would not have said, I want an automobile, but it was
Yeah.
not in their
All black.
it was not in their concept, right? So he had to invite them to look at the horse, but he also that's where hood ornaments came from. You know, on the
Okay.
Rolls Royce, there's a hood ornament, and on the Jaguar, there's the little Jaguar on the front of it. Hood ornaments came because in the beginning, people were a little weirded out by the idea of this cart, this motorized carriage. So he
Yeah.
put a horse's head on the front of it.
Thank
And
you.
it helped people get more comfortable with the idea this is a horse pulling it. It was all psychological. And then that, became little Mercedes-Benz emblems and whatever else. But that was the origin of the hood ornament because people said, but we want this. You want that? Fine, take it. You're stupid, but fine, I'll give it to you as long as you buy the thing that matters the most. So, but it is that balance. You can't fall in love with your product. You got to fall in love with your client.
I want to touch on something. Imposter syndrome. I mean, you're coming through, school. You've done the PhD. You have all of this. What have you ever dealt with imposter syndrome, and how did you address it? And I said this specifically for women because I do a lot of work in the Middle East, and I hear a lot of women tell me that they're frightened of public speaking. They're frightened of getting in front of an audience that may not look like them. How do you tackle that? How do you tackle imposter syndrome? I know you can say we can do more of it, but how do you talk yourself through that?
There's about 18 different points I want to hit in those two questions that you just asked.
Okay.
So let's break this down a little bit.
Okay.
So fear of public speaking and imposter syndrome, while they can be related, they are not the same thing. So let's separate those. And being an introvert also is not the same as being a bad public speaker. So there are fabulous public speakers who are natural introverts, but introversion does not mean shy and timid and experiencing imposter syndrome. Introversion is about how you process information, how you charge energy, how you get energy and what takes energy out of you. There's a number of different things, but shy is different. As far as public speaking is concerned, it is not so much the fear of public speaking as the fear of public judgment, the fear of public scrutiny. That's what people are truly afraid of. And what I mentioned in the little opening video that you played, my 4-word secret to confident public speaking is very simply, it's not about you. It's not about you. But so when you think about it, I'm going to ask everybody out there, everybody who's listening, up to this point, you've been listening now for about 38 minutes, give or take.
Yeah.
And when you logged in, when you clicked join, were you thinking to yourself, okay, this is a communications person. I'm going to take a red pen and I'm going to make a mark on my paper for every time she says, or I'm going to listen for all sorts of mistakes or fallacies in her argument. And I'm going to see if Ron invited an idiot to this organization because I don't trust him. You got to prove that you deserve to be on his show. Ron, you got to prove that you should be a host of a show. Did anybody out there join with that mentality, that one of scrutiny right away? No. Here's what I'll bet. Okay, and tell me if I'm reading into your soul, anybody in there. But chances are when you joined, your thoughts were something along the lines of, I hope this is good. I hope I get a lot of value out of this. I hope it's interesting. I hope I gain something that helps me right away. I hope my mind is totally blown by something that she says. I hope I take a ton of notes. I hope I can't wait to listen to the replay or share it with somebody else. I hope this is the best hour of my time I could have spent all week. Any of those sound true? Probably. So all of those things together have one thing in common. They're about you, the listener, the audience. They're all about ourselves. And all audiences, and that's not a bad thing. That's why you join. You could be doing 100,000 other things with your time, but you've chosen to invest your time here. And so, of course, you want to get a return on the investment, that ROI for your time. So
Mhm.
our job as speakers and your job as speakers when it's your turn out there to be speaking in front of a meeting, in front of the board, in front of on a stage or wherever else, is to simply do one thing: be generous
Mhm.
and do your best to give the audience the best value, the best experience possible. You have
Yes.
been invited to speak, whether it's for 5 minutes, 5 hours, however long it is. You've been invited to speak because the person who invited you believed that you had some value that they wanted you to share with the wider audience. Now,
Mhm.
it is your job to honor that request and give them your best value. That is it.
Wow. That's so many nuggets. That's a masterclass. Here's my thought. How do you how do you learn? How do you stay ahead of all the changes that are going through competencies and all these kinds of things, leadership styles and all of this? How do you learn? I mean, you've got the PhD. Okay, that was past tense for the most part. So how do you stay into this new realm of innovation, disruption, and
You keep tuning in and participating in conversations like these. I love
okay.
being part of podcasts because I get to talk to people like you. I get to meet audiences like yours. I love being on stage and things, but I'm also constantly reading. I'm also listening to my own podcasts. I just attended a 2-day negotiation seminar earlier this week. That was amazing. I'm constantly seeking to learn. What don't I know yet? AI. Oh my gosh, I've had to learn so much about AI in the last year.
Yes.
I can't keep up with it all, but I have to still do my best to learn something, and it's been amazing. But you have to be constantly open to learning. You have to be perpetually curious, and I really think that even if you are someone who's naturally introverted, naturally shy, naturally whatever, you must be willing to talk to people. You must be willing to ask questions. You must be willing to meet people, and people who perhaps you think, well, why would they want to talk to me? Well, why wouldn't they want to talk to you?
Exactly. Yeah, flip it.
Yeah.
Exactly, exactly. Your For the people that are listening, your podcast is the Global Top 1% podcast,
Mhm.
speaking to influence communication secrets of the C-suite, and that's on YouTube, I'm sure.
Yes. It's
It's-
also on Apple and Amazon,
yeah,
Audible,
yeah.
Spotify, all the typical platforms.
And the podcast Alpha Whispers,
Yes.
Genesis,
Also, same platforms. Yes.
both are there. Okay, cool. Um, I want to ask you a question because we're coming up on the end of time. If you had one piece of advice to give to your younger self, because you started out, you said, "Well, I want to become an academic. I want to do this." I'm sure there were doubts there. If you could go back and give your younger self some piece of advice, what would it be? Maybe there's nothing. What would it be?
Be patient and persevere, because most of my big goals in life were things that um, they all took much longer than I thought
Hmm.
they would, and they all went in directions that I did not expect them to go. You know, what's funny is when I graduated from the university, undergrad, my bachelor's degree, I remember seeing the doctoral students going up to get their diplomas, and they had like the funny hats and the long robes and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
And yeah, exactly. And thinking to myself, you guys are nuts. You are crazy. You could not pay me enough money to go back. I wanted to get out of school, stop being a student, get a job, real stuff.
yeah,
I'm like, you can keep that higher ed stuff. I am done. And Ron, I'm glad words don't have calories because I eat way too many
exactly.
of them. And so I ended up going back to school 3 more times for different degrees and certifications because what I realized I wanted at each stage in my career required me to get
Required.
additional training. And, I thought that the PhD would take 3 to 4 years, and it took me 7, and that's
Mm,
already after a master's degree. So that was definitely about perseverance and grit, grit, grit all the way. Same thing with building the business. I did not think it would be a 5-year ramp until I got real sustainable traction. that was grit, 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 and learning to handle no. And so many times I wanted to give up. And frankly, I'll be personal with you. Even in life, I had always wanted to get married and have a family. I didn't meet my husband until I was 40.
Okay. Okay.
And so that was about 15 to 20 years later than I was sort of expecting
Yeah,
it.
yeah, yeah. According to the game plan. According to the
Exactly.
game
It was
plan.
not part of the game plan, and I had my family and all, but it was perseverance is just not giving up. And you can't give up because, they say you want to make God laugh, tell him your plans. Okay, well,
Yeah,
you
yeah,
got to just go with it. So perseverance and grit.
yeah.
Don't give
So
up.
what are you most excited about for the future? Last question. As we close out, what are you most excited about for the future?
What am I most excited about? Oh my gosh, so many things, but growth in business. I think we're really at a turning point with AI. I just hired 3 more people for my team, so I'm excited to see where that can go.
Yeah.
Focusing our business niche even more, getting on more stages. There's a lot of really big changes on the horizon for me professionally as far as growth is concerned. And I want to see where AI takes us. So that's a lot of
Okay.
fun.
Okay, cool. I want to do a shout out to some of our frequent listeners. Peter Piccinini, who was a former guest some time ago, started out in theater, managing art, and now he's a financial advisor. And this is the kind of discussions we have here, on the CEO series. John Self, who started out as a reporter, who's done executive search, who's into so many things, and he does an executive search podcast and all those kinds of things. We got a comment from a LinkedIn user. And LinkedIn, if you post on LinkedIn, it doesn't give you a name. It says courage is feeling the fear and doing it anyway.
Yep.
She said your comment was very powerful as a
Yes,
result.
thank you.
Yeah, John says, Tina, great information. I'm finding that the best qualified applicants only get the job about 30 to 35% of the time. The person who does the best job explaining their value usually gets the job.
Yes. Yes. And so this is what I will tell you, John, is that it's what I call the expert's curse that we often get stuck with. And that's because when you have been in your field, in your role, in your expertise area for so long that you forget what is and is not interesting, necessary, obvious, understandable, and what to everybody else. So we
Yeah.
tend to get lost in the weeds, way too much detail, way too much technical, answering the questions. And especially in leadership roles, when you're applying for those jobs, you have to be able to say to the person, not just, well, here's how I fixed the problem, or here's the product that that my team built. It's, well, what went into that? How did you get the buy-in of all the people? Explain to me what went into it. How did you lead through that? What were the challenges? What were your concerns, thought processes, feelings, all that background stuff? And especially for technical people, they forget to include all that, people stuff in their answers. But
Other side.
yes, and you're not interviewing for a technical or technician's job. They're hiring you, you're interviewing for a leadership job. So your answers better demonstrate leadership thought processes, emotional intelligence, self-awareness, and the ability to articulate all of that stuff, not just saying we went from A to B and increased efficiency, revenue, whatever it is. Yes, those stats matter, but it's the journey that's more important than the destination for many of those. And that's, I think, why the other 30, 65% of the massively qualified applicants are not getting the jobs, because they don't show they can lead.
Yeah, so John just came back and he said, bravo. But I want to say thank you so much for taking the time to be a guest on our show. And we look for people to talk through their career journeys. And yours is just magnificent in talking through how you started from a PhD. Forget about it, PhD. Entrepreneurship. Let me try something. And you kept going through these and reinventing yourself. So thank you so much. I need you to think about what would you like to leave the audience as we begin the process of closing out? A couple of statements for the audience.
Being able to lead requires being able to speak, to articulate your thoughts, to inspire people, and to flex your message, because not everyone receives messages the same way. Not everyone takes instruction the same way. Work with your team, work with your people, find your voice. Don't be afraid to have the difficult conversations. Conflict does not have to mean combat. They are not. So if you can learn to have the hard conversations through diplomacy, it's not black or white. Well, I got to be me. I want to be authentic. Well, authentic doesn't mean unfiltered. Authentic doesn't mean undiplomatic. Authentic means smartly truthful. The best way to what's the term? The definition of tact is the ability to make a point without making an enemy.
Yeah.
How do you convey it? But you have to be able to balance honoring the integrity of your message, what you need them to understand, and honoring the integrity of the relationship. If you can figure out how to merge those two, that is golden. I will leave the audience with that.
Okay, cool. Thank you so much. I need you to hang on as we begin to close up. For people that are listening, we want you to like, comment, share our discussions with people in your network, because we do this every Friday at 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, 5 p.m. in Dubai, which is where I'm located today.
Amazing.
So thank you so much. Hang on, doctor, and I'll see you all next Friday. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Take the CEO series with you anywhere, anytime. All episodes are now available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and major streaming platforms. It's not just an interview. It's a masterclass in leadership.